Welcome to Lead Different.
What do you do when the life you've built no longer fits the person you've become? Karin Freeland was a successful executive juggling motherhood and a corporate career until one moment changed everything. One afternoon during a very busy day, she picked up her sick son from school, put him to bed with a wet washcloth, and returned to work. Hours later, her husband confronted her. Your son has 103-degree fever. If you put half the energy into your family as you do to your work, and he walked out. That gut punch became her wake-up call. Then she got laid off. She'd already written a book, and instead of going back to safe, she followed her dream, right in the middle of COVID. Today, she's a life coach helping women reimagine success, realign with purpose, and climb the right ladder, because sometimes the ladder is leaning on the wrong wall. This episode is a masterclass in reinvention. Tune in. You might just see your own story in hers.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different?
Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Lead Different podcast. Today's guest is Karin Freeland. Karin is a certified life and career coach. She's a podcast host, and she's an award-winning author who helps high-achieving professional women reclaim their power, reinvent their careers, and create purpose-driven lives. She has over 15 years of experience in corporate leadership across the energy, telecommunications, and the pharmaceutical industries. She understands the pressure of climbing the ladder, only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. Today, she empowers women to set boundaries, break free from burnout, and build careers that are aligned with passion, balance, and fulfillment. Her journey is one of true reinvention. She was an aspiring actress and a dancer in Miami and New York, and she became a thriving corporate leader. She eventually realized that success defined by titles and paychecks came at the cost of her family, her health, and happiness. After a powerful wake-up call, she chose to redesign her life and now shares her blueprint through her book, Grab Life by the Dreams, the essential guide to getting unstuck and living your purpose, inspiring women to believe they are capable of more and to actually go after it. So I cannot wait to share the stage with Karin Freeland. How are you, Karin?
I am fantastic. What an intro. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for sharing so much good information. I love it when people are generous in their introductions. I know Sunil does a lot of research to find out as much as he can. But man, what a great journey you have been on, Karin. And for those of you looking at Karin wondering, the heck did she do all that in such a short amount of time? She's actually older than she looks. So I'm not going to tell you guys how old she is, but she has had time to have some experience, and we're grateful that you're sharing it with your audience. You're sharing it with your clients, and today you're sharing it with our audience on the Lead Different podcast.
Yeah, and I'm not afraid of numbers. It's just a number. So I'm in my mid 40s.
Yeah, and I'm in my mid 50s. Yeah, I thought when I'm looking at Karin, I'm like, oh, she's got to be my oldest daughter's age, and mid 30s. Oh no, she said, I'm in my mid 40s. But that's giving you some time to do some things, right? And
Sure. Yeah.
what I have found is when I talk to people who do the kind of work that you do, and I love that you help people get unstuck, and that actually will have something to do with your YOS results that we'll talk about later. But one of the things that I've noticed is it's really hard. We often see young people trying to get into the coaching and the consulting industry, and the biggest question is, okay, what experience do you have, right? And that's hard. Although there are some people who are really good at reading a text and going through a coaching handbook and taking you through it. What I have found, at least in my career coaching people, it's always good to have a little bit of experience and having gone through some of the things that the people you're coaching have gone through. And
Yeah.
You've got a varied experience. Take us through going from being an actress and a dancer to going to telecommunications and pharmaceutical sales to your current role as a life coach.
Yeah. I think like most people, when you're growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to be. Some of my friends were like, I'm going to go be a doctor. I'm going to be this or be that. And I was just like, I don't know. I don't really feel like a strong calling to anything, but I'd always been a dancer. So after college, I moved to Miami, packed up my car, basically waited tables while I tried to figure it out, and had always been enthralled by acting. Threw myself into some classes, got lucky, got a couple of bit parts, the movie From Justin to Kelly, got my first set of lines and got a SAG card and thought, oh, wow, I could really do this. I think this could be my thing. So decided to move to New York after Miami and go try it there. Cause if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Right. And did that for a few years. And it was like, I was always close, it was like I would get onto a soap opera, but I could never really get the day part, right? And be a regular. It would just kind of call me in here and there. And so I started to feel like, I don't know, is this it? Is this the thing that I'm supposed to be doing? And I think if you're going to be in that field, you have to just really love it. It has to be so innate to you because there's a ton of rejection too. You're constantly going on auditions and things. But I thought it's really hard to see if this is the thing or not when I have to wait tables because it was like this chicken and egg. You could never be available for a job or an audition because you were working, but then, you couldn't. It was just like, okay, well, what if I just quit waiting tables and I just got a job, saved every penny for a year, and then I'll go act full time. So that was my grand scheme. And I got a job at T-Mobile selling BlackBerries back in the day when BlackBerries had first come out. If you remember those, if you're, younger, you're like, what's a BlackBerry? But it was like the first smartphone. And I was so excited for this job, but clueless. I knew nothing about sales, knew nothing about business. I thought BlackBerries were fruit. I was really confused, but I figured, I don't know, I'll figure it out. And turns out I was really, really good at sales. I was really good at connecting with people. I was young enough to just walk into buildings in New York City and pretend like I belonged and sneak on the elevator and, do all the things you have to do when you're cold calling in a sales environment. And got my first commission check. It was more money than I'd ever seen on one check. And I thought, well, this is it. I think this is what I'm meant to do. And so I abandoned my idea of acting, although I went on some jobs here and there and just kind of kept my foot in it when I could, but really focused on what I say, climbing the ladder, right? Like I got addicted to the money drug because all the things everybody else around me in New York was doing, going out to fancy dinners, getting the best purses and clothing, like that was always off limits for me because I was a waitress making no money, And so now all of a sudden I could play with the big girls. And it was really attractive to me. And so I just got hooked, got into pharmaceuticals, got into other telecommunications companies, worked my way up until at 39, I basically had a midlife crisis. I don't have another way to explain it. The burnout just reached max capacity. I was not.
What was that? What was that experience? That's one we want to dig into because we all have pivotal moments in our lives. What led to that midlife crisis? Tell us about it.
There were a plethora of things. There's not necessarily one specific thing that happened. It was the constant grind. And I'm a type A personality. So some of this is on me. And I think that's one of the hardest pills for me to swallow. Is really easy when I was playing the blame game. Like, no, my job demands this of me, or this is what's required. I have to do these things. And really, I could have set more boundaries, but I didn't because I was just so hungry on getting to the next level, on proving something to, I don't even know who, right? Anyone and everyone. So I remember distinctly though, one day I had to pick up my son early from school and it was a nuisance for me. Like I was mad that my son was sick and I had to leave my important job to go pick him up, which sounds horrible when you say it out loud. And it is horrible, but that was the state that I was in. But it was because I was so burnt out and I was so overwhelmed and there was so much going on that I had no more capacity to give. I was tapped out. So any little thing would just set me off, right? I was constantly on edge. I was constantly cranky. So anyway, my husband comes home. I picked up my son. I throw him in the bed. I give him like a hot washcloth or cold washcloth on his head. And I'm like, Dad'll be home in 2 hours and he'll take you to the doctor's. And he walks in and my husband takes his temperature and he came out of his room and he was so mad at me. And he was like, Karin, your son has 103 temperature right now. If you put half the energy into your family that you did to your work, and he walked out. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I become? Like, who am I? This isn't the mom I signed up to be. This isn't the life that I wanted. How did I get here?
How dare he get sick in the middle of your busy day?
Oh, right. It's like, and now I feel awful. And now, like, anytime now that I have my own business and I can, manage my own schedule, it's like they'll text me, can you pick me up? I'm like, sure, baby, I'll be right there.
Right.
So now I think I've over rotated. Like, I give them a little too much leeway.
Sure. Well, tell me, but your husband, boy, that probably had to have been boiling in him for a while.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so so he says it and walks out. What are you going through as you let those words sink in?
It was there were tears definitely welling up, but I think I was just so prideful at that point. And so but I'm doing this for us. Like, I work this hard so we can have this life, so that the kids can play hockey, so that I can, be your sugar mama. Like that. We used to always joke, like I was the sugar mama, right? Because I was the breadwinner. And I really thought that I was doing this for us, but really when I took a step back and I started to look at what that meant, this is not what no one was happy. My husband and I were ships passing in the night. I was always up late working. We'd be at the dinner table and he would ask me a question and I'm in another land because I'm thinking about this marketing campaign that I got to execute on or whatever. And I wasn't present. I wasn't the mom or the wife I wanted to be, but I was stuck. What else would I do? Like, what am I going to go back to acting and I'm going to be auditioning and going to the city every day?
And by now you're an old lady in your 30s,
right?
How dare you
Totally.
go back to acting?
Yeah, that ship has sailed. No, just kidding. It's never too late. We all know that. But that wasn't the thing that spoke to me either. And I really remember sitting in my office with a coworker and he was just like, well, if you died tomorrow, what would you regret? Like, what would you regret not doing? And I could not answer that question. I did not know that answer. I knew all the things I didn't like about my life, but could not tell you what to replace it with. What would make me happy? What would bring me joy? What's my YOS? I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know my purpose. I felt like I didn't have one. And so I really, we had 2 deaths in the family, and that was sort of the impetus that finally shattered all of this wide open. And I was like, my time here is finite. I do not have forever. I'm young, but I don't have forever. And I'm probably at least a third of my life is over. I got to figure this out. Like, what do I want the rest of my life to look like? And I am so glad that I had that midlife crisis because it really has given me a whole fresh perspective. It has given me a new lease on life. And I know that there's so many more people right now who feel stuck and trapped in a life that they don't love. And I hate that. I don't want that for anyone.
I love that. It sounds, one of the things that I know is so important is when our work becomes so important because we know it's making a difference for others. Yeah. I can hear it. I can feel it when you talk about it. There is someone out there. There's a Karin Freeland listening that's probably going through the exact same thing where their priorities are out of whack and their pride. And that's it's so good that you brought that up because I mentioned it in the pre-show. I talked to Father John Carney and he says, pride is the devil's favorite sin. Because through pride, he can get a lot done, right? And if we're prideful, we're not going to apologize to people. And how dare you get sick in the middle of the day when I'm trying to get, and how dare you call me out on it? I'm your sugar mama, darn it, right? I'm making it possible for us to do all these things. I think a lot of us go through that. priority wise, tell me how your priorities shifted when you came to that realization, and what was the answer? Because I think that's a great answer we want to get to. When you finally figured out what would be the thing you would regret if you died tomorrow, what was your answer then? And let's talk about your answer now, but what was your answer that you figured out
Yeah.
as you dug deep back then?
Yeah. So the answer then was writing a book. I had started writing a book when I was on maternity leave, and I had just never finished it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to bet on myself, and I'm just going to write this book. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know if I'm going to publish it, but I've got to at least give it a shot, right? And see what that's like. And through this process, I started to just dream, right? Things started to get exciting again. I started to get engaged in more hobbies and shift that balance from work being the one and only thing I do to, like, you know what? My 80% at work is someone else's 120% at work. So let me dial it back. Let me start delegating to my team more. I don't need to take all this stuff on my shoulders. And because I had this other fun, exciting pet project that I could work on, it gave me the freedom to let go of some of that stuff because I had something to replace it with. And I think that's one of the biggest things for people to remember when you're going through a transformation or any change. Like, you don't quit smoking cold turkey and not have something to replace it with, right? That's why you have gum to snack on, or, you whatever, change your routines or your behaviors, because you have to replace it with something. You can't just have this void all of a sudden. Right. If you want to do it the right way and set yourself up for success, right? That's what I've found, is like, you have to replace it with something else. You want to stop drinking, then get non-mocktail cocktails, right? So you're still having the act of drinking, but you're not consuming the alcohol
or ice cream.
So,
right. Ice cream always works.
Yes,
if you're going to replace drinking, do ice cream. Good.
I like it.
Lots of vanilla shakes, strawberries, and soft ice cream. I mean, okay, but that's just my side. Go it on. I think great concept that you're talking about. Replace it with something, because so many people want to just, okay, I quit. Well, if you don't replace it with something, and Father Carney will say this, he says, you know what? The devil loves a void. If you leave a void, he'll fill it, right?
Yes.
And so don't leave a void that he can fill. Be intentional about what you're going to fill it with. That's fantastic advice. Yeah, let's keep going. Okay.
I'm like delegating at work because I've got something else to fill the void. I'm doing hobbies. It's great. And then I start talking to people about, like, well, networking with entrepreneurs. Like, well, what do you do if you're not in a corporate job? What does your business look like? And I started to realize, wow, I have a lot of skills and things that I can offer. I could do consulting. I can do marketing work for people. I can cut out the middleman and just go straight to the clients. And then I got laid off. And it was like this beautiful sign from God. Like, yes, Karin, yes, I am with you on this journey. I am directing you. There's a reason, you're in this position right now. There's a reason your role is being eliminated. And it's because I see your potential. I see the direction you're going, and this is where I want you. And it was this wonderful validating moment for me. And it took away a lot of the sting of a layoff, because, that never really feels good, to be told, even though, it's a reduction in force, but it still doesn't feel good to be saying, we don't need your services. We don't want you.
No, that is, I want to make sure we spend some time on that, Karin.
Yeah.
So timing is important here, because you've got this side gig. What's nice about a layoff is you probably got a nice compensation package that give you some money to say, okay, I'm gonna try this full time. And then the other thing I want to talk about is you kind of went in a different order. A lot of coaches do corporate, and then they get into coaching, and then they write a book. You wrote a book and stayed in your corporate job, and then decided to become an entrepreneur. Tell us about the entrepreneurial jump. How did you start? What was the, like, kind of the first few things? So now what year is this? Give us a year. So
we're 2020.
So 2020, you just got laid off. I mean, everything, the world is perfect in 2020, right? It's a great time to start a business, right?
Yeah. And
so tell us about 2020 for you.
I don't even know that I knew I was going to start a business, right? I resisted it a lot, but people kept telling me, God kept putting people in my life that said, Karin, you would be great at consulting. Karin, you should think about consulting. Karin, you should think about marketing. And, but I was still thinking, well, I'll just be a full-time author. Like, I'm just going to write books. That's what I'll do. And I'll speak, and that'll be great. And I remember talking to a health coach, and she was like, I love fitness. I was like, this might make sense. And I think that, let me just caveat this. When you are thinking about making a pivot or doing something different, you have to have conversations. You have to just be out there and networking and exploring these opportunities so that you can translate it from your head to something on paper. So I was having this conversation with a health coach, thought that might be something I'd be interested in. And I had a great conversation. I thought, gosh, if this woman can do this, well, damn it, I can do it too. Like, I could have a business too. And so I got on this call to learn about a health coach certification, and they talked about life coaching. And it was like this light bulb went on, and I was like, that's it. Because in life coaching, I can also deal with health, but I can deal with all the other confidence, the burnout, the boundaries, like everything else I want to talk about and that is important to me and important to making a pivot. And so that was it. I latched onto it, got certified, and started taking clients by the end of 2020. And it was a very quick, short process once I knew this is the path. And I've been on it for the last 5 years, and it's glorious.
So this is going to resonate because I remember 2019 was the year I left corporate. And I also partnered with the Y Institute, the company that creates the assessment that you took, the YOS Discovery. And Gary Sanchez and I were real good friends, known each other for 25 years. He was a dentist. At the time, he was going to sell his dental practice to go full-time into getting this assessment in the hands of as many people as possible. And I go in with a sore tooth, and he's working on my tooth, and he says, Dan, I hear you left Baxter. What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, Gary. Whatever I do, I'm going to love. And he asked me, do you know your why? Takes me through the assessment. A couple hours later, we're having lunch at a Chinese restaurant close to his office. We shake hands, and I become his chief growth officer. So then I go on this journey. So 2019, we've got all these plans. 2020, as his chief growth officer, I'm in charge of finding new clients, putting on events. We have a calendar full of people who are going to buy our product, and we're going to do workshops for them. And then the pandemic hits in 2020. And so I know how that impacted us. We had to go fully remote. People didn't know how to use Zoom. All of a sudden, we were teaching people how to use Zoom. All our courses had to be done online. What was it like for you starting a business in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, and becoming a life coach?
Yeah, I got to say it was almost the opposite because it barely impacted me at all. And why I say that is everything was remote. All my sessions were going to be Zoom. They always were. They always have been. So for me, it was a very easy transition because I had worked, remotely for a long time in corporate. I was comfortable doing Zooms and meetings, and I knew all the technology. So there was nothing there for me to learn.
Right.
And actually, what was so amazing is there was a great group out in Australia called Business in Heels, and it's all female entrepreneurs. So at 8 p.m., I would hop on for networking at their 10 a.m. coffee chat, and I would get to network with these amazing entrepreneurs and business owners in another country. And those women, because they didn't know anybody at my work, and that had started a little bit before the layoff and continued on, like they were my network and my cheerleaders who helped me make this transition. And, I think it's important that whenever you want to make a change, whenever you're making a career pivot, you want to have that network of people who are cheering you on, who are rooting for you, who believe in you before you're strong enough to believe in yourself. Yes. Which is great as a coach because that's the role we get to play for a lot of our clients, you know?
Yeah. That is so good. Such a great story. And I like the fact that you were able to thrive. Let me ask you this question. This is important. Why life coach versus executive coach? There's different types of coaching.
Yes.
I myself consider myself a leadership coach. That's literally what I work. I'm not a business coach. I'm not a consultant. I do some consulting on team, but I really like to stay in the leadership space. Life coach for me, and again, this is just me, it feels like, man, there's so much to it.
Yeah.
How do you handle all of it? How do you set the boundaries, or how do you set the goals so that you're not getting into stuff that's, okay, well, that's outside of my scope, or how do you limit that? Tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a life coach.
Yeah. And I specifically focus on women. So I would say I'm a women's life coach, which narrows the field a little bit. But I have a process. So in my book, Grab Life by the Dreams, I take people through the EDIT methodology. And so it is really a process of envisioning your goals. And, the brain can only handle so many goals at a time. So that's typically 3 to 5 things that you want to work on or accomplish or make progress on in the next 6 months. And then from there, you're going to which is document the goal. And so we're really getting those detailed plans, the action steps that you're committing to. We talk about the I, which is investing in the goal, which is not always a money thing. Sometimes we need to invest in our skills. We need to invest in relationships and networking with people. So that's a whole, separate step. And then the T represents taking action. And so that's where a lot of the accountability and those, taking those next steps happens. So I think through that process, there might be something that you want to accomplish, with marriage that might be better suited for a marriage therapist or a marriage coach. And so as we're looking at those goals together with my client, we're able to craft the ones that really make sense for us to work on. So that does help narrow. But I would say 90% of what I do is women who are making a career pivot.
Right.
And, it's probably 60-40 with people who want to exit and go start a business. And then I can do a little bit of that early business coaching, or
Right.
it's people who want to change jobs or get promoted. And so we're working on that. But, I'm grateful for all the experiences I had in corporate because it really has made me a better coach and I'm able to meet them where they are. I understand a lot of the challenges that they're dealing with. But I'm glad I'm out of that side of things.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Have more freedom and flexibility.
So yeah, what's the biggest win from being your own boss, running your own business? Hey, you know what? So, and let's not over romanticize it. There's pressure, right?
Oh.
Because there is no guaranteed. Here's your base salary, and then if you really kill it, you get on top of that, you get this much. It's amazing how different it is when you get out into entrepreneur workspace where, hey, you eat what you kill, right? And if you don't kill, you're not going to eat that week. And so as Jen Fulweiler was saying the other day, she was a mom at summer vacation Bible study. She said, there was the lesson that when I was in charge of bringing the food, the kids learned about fasting that day.
Absolutely.
Right? That you learn about fasting if you don't take care of business. So what's the biggest perk, and what's the hardest thing that you've had to do since becoming an entrepreneur? Biggest perk first. Let's start with
and I mean, it's really hard to pick one big win. I think, freedom and flexibility of time is wonderful. It is probably one of my favorite things about being an entrepreneur. If my son has something at school and I want to be there, I can be there, right? I just move my clients around if I need to, or, I can just not schedule clients that day. Like, it's great. So that has been a win for our family because I'm able to be the mom I always wanted to be. But I think beyond that, being able to dive deeper into my faith. And so back in January, I actually consecrated my business to the Sacred Heart of Jesus at our Catholic church in South Carolina. And it was just such an amazing relief. And for most of my life, because I'm type A, I try to do everything on my own. I take everything onto my shoulders. I wear all the burdens. I'm not good at letting others lead. And I got to a point in my life where I was like, you know what? I've tried it my way. And I think I'm ready to not do that anymore. I think I'm ready to finally let Jesus be the CEO of my business. So let's go. And we had this awesome opportunity, and through his way at work, they do this, and they have actual ongoing chapter meetings and give you emails every day and just get you thinking about other ways to let Jesus lead in your business and to let his light shine through you. So that has been a huge win for me and has taken off a lot of the pressure, if I'm not earning this, well, then I'm not very good at my job. Or if I don't charge this like this coach does, well, then I'm a bad life coach, or I'm doing something wrong. It's like, no, what does Jesus want me to charge? Jesus said, this is all I need right now. I'm good. And I can just be okay with me and how I operate. So that's been freeing.
So thank you so much for reminding me of that, Karin. So our company is being consecrated this Friday on the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe from our conversation that we had probably about a month ago. And I went on his way at work. I saw the kit, ordered it, and I'm on day 9. Today is day 9 of the novena.
Yes.
Tomorrow is our consecration. And so we'll be doing that. Thank you for that idea and for bringing that to my consciousness, because I think it's absolutely true. I think there's a difference between doing work for yourself, doing work for a company versus doing work for God and saying, you know what? Okay, God, what do you want me to do? Right. As we're planning these things, sometimes things don't work out the way we wanted them to do, but maybe he's got a bigger plan and we've got to be prepared and ready to answer that. So that's fantastic. So you did that in January of this year, working with His Way at Work. What's been the biggest benefit of working with the folks? Or you mentioned there's meetings, and so what are you getting out of His Way at Work right now that you would recommend to someone who's thinking about doing this?
Yeah, community. Community is so important. And I have traditionally not seen people bring God into business, right? That's not been something that has been modeled for me. So I really shied away from it. And if you read my book, Grab Life by the Dreams, although there is a chapter in there about spirituality, you'll hear a lot of words used like the universe, your higher power, because I was really trying to appeal to a broader audience. And as I've done that, I've realized, well, you don't always attract people who think and share all of your values. And so that makes it hard for me sometimes when I'm coaching somebody and they're just in, complete opposition to how I think and feel and believe. Not that I can't still show up and serve them and love them right where they are. And that's what Jesus would do. So that is what I do. But I enjoy so much more when I can start a session in prayer, or I can just pause and say, well, what do you think God would want you to do with all of this information? And just bring him into this so he can co-create with me and my client. It doesn't happen every session, but just when it feels right, or it's nice to have that tool at our disposal. And so I think now that I'm able to bring that in more, people see that, and I'm going to attract those right people. But knowing that there's a community of others doing this and I'm not out here on my own on an island has just been encouraging, because I'm like, oh, well, if that worked in your business, maybe that would work in mine. Let me try it.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so important. What role does faith play in your business right now? Obviously, you've done the consecration. You talk about the difference. We looked at when we decided to become, okay, we're going to lean into the fact that we're a Catholic-owned business, and this is who we want to work with. And it's so because you and I started talking, and somehow you brought up the consecration. It was like, oh, you're also Catholic, so let's make sure we talk about that. But one of the things that I looked at, I just did some research, just basic, Googled all the knowledge is out there, right? I Googled 70% of the world believes in God.
Yeah,
half of those people believe in the same God you and I do. They're Christian, right? So 35% of the world believes in the same God that we do. There are so many billions and of those, half of those are Catholic. So billions of people in the world that are Catholic, millions of business owners, millions of people who probably need life coaching, who share your faith. Why not? And again, why not? Why not focus on those people so that you don't have those barriers? So tell us about, for you, what role is faith playing at Karin Freeland Life Coach?
Yeah. And this is still evolving. I'll be honest, right? Like I share it more in my social posts. I'm, like I said, bringing it into some of my sessions, but I think that there's still more that I could be doing and should be doing. A lot of the way that faith has played out for me is kind of behind the scenes, right? Praying for my clients and praying that God will reveal to them their best next step, and to just be that sort of silent cheerleader. I mean, my clients don't even know I do this for them, but it is something that they're just on my prayer list. Right. So things like that. I think right now it is a little more behind the scenes than maybe he wants me to be, but I'm like, all right, God, well, then you'll show me what you want me to do. Right. And so I'm sort of in that discernment phase right now about what that ultimately looks like going forward. So we'll see. That's not an exact answer for you, but it's the honest answer.
Yeah, and that's all we want. I mean, because again, what's beautiful about bringing people like yourself, who are succeeding at something that a lot of people are thinking about doing or might be hesitant to do, and they can see you talk about it, and guess what? There are going to be challenges, but there's also going to be successes, and there are the perks that come. So we got to talk about those perks that come with it, and we'll work on the stuff that that we've got to work on. But I love the idea that God has a plan, and we're here to execute on that. And sometimes what we actually end up doing versus what we thought we were going to do. I think Matthew Kelly says it got, we plan, God laughs, right?
Yeah, I love Matthew Kelly.
Yeah, Matthew Kelly's fantastic. I just finished reading, I think it's his latest book, Slowing Down to the Speed of Joy. And
Oh,
it's so good about prioritizing the important stuff like you did, your family, time with your kids. How many kids do you have?
2 boys, and they're
Two
teenagers now. So,
two
you
teenage
know,
boys playing hockey and stuff, right?
yeah, lacrosse now, but yes,
Lacrosse. Well, it's still something with a stick. They
it
got to
is
they beat each other with sticks too because they're boys. So I'm sure that you've seen a few of those fights.
all the time. Yes.
So let me ask you this, if you don't mind, Karen, I'd like to
Yeah.
share your YOS results with our audience
Sure.
because a lot of the people that listen to the show have been through the YOS process. I've personally taken about almost 3,000 people through the process, plus there's 300,000 people that have done it worldwide. So we're going to go over your results. And it's funny because I was reading your introduction. One of the things you say is you help people get unstuck. And that is a characteristic of people with the why of make sense. So Karen's results, as we look through and we went over them yesterday pre-show, are contribute, simplify, make sense. So Karen leads with contribute. Her why is contribute. She wants to make a difference. She wants to help others. She's here for that. And we know that. And we hear it in the stories that you tell and the way you care for your clients. You're here to make a difference. And if you can make a positive impact, you'll do that. Your how came back as simplify. And I tell people that have simplify in their YOS, you have to understand that's the rarest why. And almost anybody that I speak to that has the why of simplify is incredibly successful because you tend to be able to take things that are complex and challenging for others and simplify them and make them understandable. And that's a skill that not a lot of people have. And you're able to do that. And then your what is make sense. And again, you help people make sense by simplifying in order to contribute. So as I say it that way, can you see a time in your life or times in your life where you've really lived into, hey, I want to make a difference. Let me simplify it and let me help you make sense of it. Let me help you get unstuck, basically, right?
Yeah. And I mean, certainly leaving corporate now, it makes so much sense why I wasn't happy there because I didn't feel like I could make an impact. I didn't feel like I was making a difference, but it's because of how I'm wired. So someone else could have had those exact jobs, those exact positions, and they would have been totally fulfilled. But because of YOS, I couldn't connect that what I was doing to my purpose or to something that was more meaningful. So I think that was very glaring for me as I got the results back. I could see how that fit. In terms of simplify, I think that's always been my nature. I don't have time or energy for complication. If there's more than 3 or 4 steps, you've lost me. I'm checked out. I'm done. And so I just try to bring everything to as clear as possible and something that we can move through quickly, something that's repeatable, right? I love repeatable processes that we can just use over and over. So that made a ton of sense. And I've been helping out part-time at a nonprofit. And, as I've been coming in there, I think I've been able to add a lot of value in that realm as well, just like simplifying. We've got too many different moving parts, too many spreadsheets, too many things. How do we just make it clear and easy to find things? So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to look at this and see how it matches up for me.
Well, tell us about your nonprofit because that's a big part of your work. Tell us about what you're doing there and how that's impacting your work.
Yeah. So, I was just kind of talking to God several months ago saying, hey, business is good, but it's not necessarily taking up all my time. I think I have some energy for something else. What is it that you are calling to me? And I saw he really wanted me to jump into the area of trafficking and to help stop sex trafficking. Greenville, South Carolina is number 1 in the state for reported cases. So that's pretty alarming. People hear sex trafficking and they think it's something that only happens in third world countries, but it's right here in the US. And unfortunately, the US is one of the biggest consumers and buyers of sex. So they had a ministry coordinator role that was part-time that they wanted to fill. And I thought, well, that's perfect part-time because I can't work full-time right now. But so that's what I did. I jumped in and I've been there since the middle of August. And it's been awesome just to jump in and see the difference that you're making. And unfortunately, how needed this is right now.
Wow, that is I saw what is the gentleman who played Caviezel. I heard his talk on trafficking and just a tremendous keynote
Mhm.
on how we're being called as a country. As a country,
Yeah,
we're the United States. We're the biggest exporter of pornography and child trafficking. We're the biggest consumers of
yeah,
it. It is terrible, and it's all being produced in our country. In California, I think California has the highest concentration of it, but it's
sure.
everywhere. And
It is.
especially when we talked about, however you feel politically, so many children that came into this country illegally and unmonitored that
Mhm.
ended up in that trade.
Yes.
So unfortunately, you've got a lot of your nonprofit
Yeah.
probably has a lot of work ahead of you, and
Yeah.
thank you for doing that
Yeah.
because, again, if it's not for people who decide to take action, it
Yeah.
doesn't happen. I'll share that clip from Jim. He was actually in Albuquerque. He was a keynote speaker at a fundraiser for Project Defending Life
Okay.
in New Mexico, and just did a fantastic job. So, but
Yeah.
it's been recorded. I'll share it with you. How
Thanks. And
fulfilling is that? And I love that really feeds your why of contribute,
yes.
making a difference.
It does for sure. And it's called Switch. So if you want to learn more, you can go to switchsc.org to learn more about our ministry. And it is faith based, which has also been really exciting for me to be able to keep that thread through everything. But yeah, I mean, when you hear the stories, because one of the things we do is strip club outreach. And so we
Mm,
go and we meet the women that everyone else has forgot about.
right.
And we let them know that we love them and that we're here for them. And we start to build consistency by being in that club regularly so that they can make those relationships with the dancers and just offer them a way out. If you're ready, when you're ready, we are here for you and we will walk this walk with you. We will get you the resources you need, the counseling, the schooling, the housing, what we don't have that stuff here, but we will connect you with the resources in the community that can support you. So it's just really beautiful when you hear these stories of women who are courageous enough to say, yep, I want out, I want help. And then we get to walk alongside them. So it's beautiful.
Wow. That is really, and I've read some of those conversion stories and those there's obviously there's an evil side to it, but you
Yeah.
have to remember that those girls oftentimes are victims.
Oh,
They
they
didn't they didn't they
1000%
do
are.
they
They always were
nine
victims.
times out of 10, probably 99 out of 100,
Yeah,
they are victimized. They are
they
not
are.
doing this because this is what they grew up dreaming that they wanted to do, right?
Yeah. Tell me a time you asked a 3-year-old if she wanted to be a stripper when she grew up, right?
Yeah.
And you hear these stories of these women whose husband comes home from work, he lost his job, and he's like, I need you to go do this for us now. This is what you do now for work to help support us. And it's like she doesn't want to be there, but she doesn't
Right.
have an alternative. Maybe she doesn't have the skills or the education to just go get a 6-figure job like I could go do. Right. And so
Right.
she finds herself in this really horrible situation. And then how do you get out of that? Your
Wow.
husband or your boyfriend or someone is coercing you to be in the situation. So, yeah, I think that's a big piece of what we do also is awareness and just trying to make sure people understand that even the prostitutes on the street, they are victims, right? They are being forced to do this. And if they
Right.
don't hit a quota, they're going to pay, right? Their pimp is going to beat them or, make an
Right.
example of them. And so a lot of the women, they're so scared and they just get in line because they're just trying to preserve self-preservation as much as possible. So,
Yeah, that is not a glamorous lifestyle, not something that anyone would choose. So thank you
no.
for your efforts in that arena. Karen, as we wrap up here, one of the
Yeah.
questions I like to ask is, what does it mean to lead different? You've definitely taken a different route in your career, and you're doing
Yeah.
something. You're doing a lot of things different than maybe where you were 5 years ago. So what's it mean to you to lead different?
Yeah, it means busting the status quo. That's the whole part 1 of my book, Grab Life by the Dreams, is all about busting the status quo and just not letting society tell you what good looks like or what your success looks like, really doing things on your own terms. And I think when you sit back and you really turn inward and you get clear on what's important to you, not what you've been sold by society, but truly what makes you tick and what is important to you, it's a game changer, right? You truly can go after those dreams and live that life that God has placed you here for and has called you to. And what could be better than that?
Wow. I love that. That is so good. I wish we had another hour with you, Karin, because this has been so fun to talk to you, just to hear about your faith journey, to hear about your family journey. I know those kids have got to be so glad to have mom around a lot more and active.
Yeah.
I know your husband probably appreciates, he's got a bigger, more full version of Karin Freeland around. And I think God and your clients are appreciative of the Karin Freeland that they get right now. I think that's a great answer. What do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much, Karin. I look forward to staying in touch. You have been a great guest. Let me make sure and do what we have to do every podcast. Guys, if you learned something from Karin today, if you like the podcast, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends and leave us a comment. Tell us what stood out from the interview with Karin. We're going to share this with her, and we'll probably have her back and give us an update on how her nonprofit work is doing and everything else that she's involved in to make a positive impact in the lives of others. Thank you so much for being on today, Karin, on the Lead Different podcast, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.